Hey, what is Israel's nuclear bomb really made of? Not of uranium, not of plutonium, not of concrete cables or missiles. It's built out of silence. In a world where great powers proudly display their warheads, Israel says nothing. It doesn't confirm, it doesn't deny, it doesn't show. And yet, everyone factors its bomb into their plans. In this episode, we'll talk about a bomb that officially doesn't exist, but has procedures, aircraft, missiles, submarines, and coded systems standing by. A bomb that has never exploded, but has stopped more wars than the entire United Nations put together. A system designed for the end of everything, whose very existence keeps everything else from collapsing. Let's begin. What is Israel's nuclear arsenal made of? There are no photos, no parades, no interviews with generals posing in front of warheads. And yet, among military analysts, non-proliferation experts, and former diplomats, one thing is taken for granted. Israel has one of the most advanced and flexible nuclear platforms on the planet. Not the biggest, but big enough to destroy any country in the region within minutes, without declaring war, without crossing a border, without warning. According to SIPRI, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists and Avner Cohen, Israel has somewhere between 80 and 200 nuclear warheads. Typical yield, from 20 to 250 kilotons. In other words, from Hiroshima up to 10 Hiroshimas. Some of these warheads are clean, uranium-based, others dirty, plutonium-based. These are not test devices. They are combat warheads integrated into delivery systems. What can carry Israeli nuclear weapons? First aircraft. The Israeli Air Force is not just F-16s and F-35s on the news. The main nuclear-capable bombers are F-15I Ram, modified for long-range missions and heavy payloads, F-16I Sufa, with low-level penetration systems, ideal for precision runs, and historically, the A-4 Skyhawk, used in the preparations around the Yom Kippur War. The Air Force trains deep strike missions, flights over thousands of kilometers without refueling, slipping past radars, all of that with a bomb in the bay. Second, ballistic missiles. Israel's Jericho system has been in development since the 1960s. Jericho on range, about 500 kilometers. Essentially a test bed for later systems. Jericho's HEC range, Y500 3,000 kilometer. Mobile launchers, a carrier for thermonuclear warheads, designed for rapid launch from desert positions. Jericho III, since around 2008, range roughly 4,800, 6,500 kilometers. Translation: Iran, Pakistan, parts of Russia, Europe, and North Africa are within reach, capable of carrying multiple independently targeted warheads. Military-grade accuracy, flight path, can dip into suborbit. Officially, none of this has ever been confirmed. Unofficially, the data lines up across German and American military sources. Third, submarines. The most frightening piece of the puzzle. Dolphin-class submarines, German-built, modified in Israel. Number 5 active, a 6th under construction. Propulsion, hybrid, ultra-quiet. Capability, launching cruise missiles tipped with nuclear warheads. Operational range, the entire coastline of the Middle East, plus the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. This is what's called second strike capability. Meaning, even if Israel disappears from the map, these submarines can launch and wipe out the attacker. That's not a metaphor, that's the philosophy of deterrence. These carriers are backed by electronic intelligence systems. Israel's OFEC, Horizon satellites are designed to track missile launches, detect nuclear-related activity, gather thermal imagery, assess neighboring states' nuclear potential. All of this is plugged into Mossad's on-the-ground operations, Unit 8200, responsible for cyber operations against other countries' energy and command infrastructure. The result? Israel often knows what others are planning, before they fully know it themselves. How is all of this meant to be used? Israel has never published any official conditions for using nuclear weapons, but leaks suggest the triggers would be an existential threat to the state, enemy use of chemical or biological weapons, a full-scale external invasion, a nuclear strike on Israeli territory, mass civilian casualties with a realistic risk of the end of statehood, These are not academic scenarios. They are operational plans, with names, codes, and launch sequences. A voice from inside? Benny Gantz, former defense minister. We don't talk about weapons we don't have, but we have everything we need to make sure we'll never have to use them, because no one will dare to push us that far. Comparison? Poland is entirely dependent on the US NATO nuclear umbrella. Israel is self-reliant, with its own deterrent ready to act at any moment. It's the difference between hiring a security guard on a short-term contract and being a commando with his own private armory. Israel's nuclear arsenal is a matryoshka doll of lies and readiness. Inside, there is no political showmanship, no triumphant display of power. Inside, there is calculation. For every missile, a response. For every threat, silence. And for every attack, the possible end of a local civilization. How does global diplomacy tolerate Israel's bomb? Imagine this scenario. Country A has between 1 and 300 nuclear warheads. It has not signed any disarmament treaty. It lets in no inspectors. It publishes no data. It accepts no UN audits. Any other country doing this would be immediately sanctioned, hit with an embargo, branded a global threat. But this country is Israel, and the world falls quiet. The NPT, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, was signed in 1968. Its goals: no spread of nuclear weapons, gradual disarmament, civilian nuclear tech only for peaceful use. Members: 191 states. Who didn't sign? Israel, India, Pakistan, North Korea, which withdrew in 2003. But only Israel enjoys everyone else's blessing. The U.S. has known since the 1960s that Israel has the bomb. CIA reports from 1968 say it plainly: Israel has crossed the technological threshold of nuclear weapons. And what did Washington do? In 1979, Carter met Begin. Begin. We won't admit anything, but we won't sign the NPT. Carter. We won't comment. Every U.S. administration since then. No real pressure, no hard questions, continued military and financial support with no disarmament condition. The U.S. plays a simple game. As long as Israel doesn't say it has the bomb, we can pretend we don't know. Because if Washington acknowledged it officially, it would be forced by its own laws to suspend some forms of aid, impose export restrictions, report the issue to Congress. Geopolitically, that's a price no one wants to pay. So, silence. And Europe? France helped Israel build the reactor. Germany supplies the submarines. The UK says nothing. The EU has never formally demanded inspections. For Europe, Israel is a democracy in a dangerous neighborhood, a key tech partner, America's strategic ally. So European politicians perform a unique trick. They condemn North Korea and Iran and Israel. It simply vanishes from the report. Even the European Parliament has never demanded an inspection of Dimona. What about Arab and Muslim states? Frustration? Or quiet acceptance? Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, they all know Israel has the bomb, but none of them launches a crusade over it. Why? Because they know they can't win that war. Because they know Israel has second strike capability. Because they know the US and NATO will never let them reach parity. Iran is the exception. That's precisely why Tehran builds its own program and points directly at Israel as the exception to the rules. Israel's bomb feeds Iran's bomb, and the whole region knows it. Why does the world live with this double standard? Because Israel doesn't publicly threaten anyone, doesn't test in the open, doesn't use the bomb as a political prop, looks civilized, rational, allied. That's no coincidence. It's a carefully built image. For the world, Israel is the state that has the bomb, but will not use it first. Iran is the state that could use it out of ideology or revenge. The result? Double morality in HD. A voice from the inside? Zvi Hauser, former Secretary of Israel's National Security Council. The world accepts our bomb because it fears the alternative. It knows that if we don't have it, we have to count on a miracle. And history teaches that miracles are not a strategy. Comparison? Poland follows treaties, disarmament regimes, NATO frameworks, and watches as the world respects real power more than law. In Israel, facts matter more than declarations. The world has learned it's better to have a nuclear-armed ally than a nuclear-armed enemy. Israel didn't build its nuclear strength out of uranium alone. It built it on a global consensus that this is a topic best left untouched. It's a bomb wrapped in silence. And that is exactly why it works so well. Why will Israel never sign the NPT? And what would happen if it did? At first glance, it seems obvious. The NPT says, if you have the bomb, disarm. If you don't build it. Let yourself be monitored. Clear enough? But Israel says, thanks, we'll pass. Not by accident. Signing the NPT would blow up the entire security system Israel has spent decades constructing. It would be like playing chess while seeing every opponent's move, and suddenly agreeing to blindfold yourself. What does the NPT say that's such a problem for Israel? The treaty divides states into nuclear weapon states, US, Russia, China, France, UK, and everybody else, who agree not to have them. If Israel signed the NPT, it would have to reveal its nuclear program, accept full IAEA monitoring, formally renounce producing and maintaining warheads, throw its whole Amamut doctrine, strategic ambiguity, into the bin. That's not a technical issue. It would be like ordering a dog to have its teeth pulled, by choice. Why does Amamut work better than official status? Ambiguity. Neither confirm nor deny. Lets Israel avoid provoking the region, avoid sanctions, maintain deterrence without formal nuclear state status. If the bomb were formally acknowledged, Iran and others would gain a powerful argument for their own programs. The UN would have to impose sanctions or pass resolutions, or lose face. The US would, by law, have to restrict some military aid, a domino effect no one wants. Why doesn't the world force the issue? Because Israel is in a strangely convenient position. It never signed the NPT, so no one can say it broke it. It has never conducted an acknowledged test, so technically it hasn't violated any test bans. It's politically and militarily stable. No one fears the bomb falling into rogue hands. So everyone keeps the fiction going. Like in theater, everyone knows the prop isn't real, but no one says it out loud, so as not to ruin the play. What if Israel did sign the NPT? It would be a geopolitical earthquake. Dimona and the entire weapons system would have to be exposed. The IAEA would need access to the reactor, archives, warheads, practically impossible. Israel would have to declare disarmament, or at least a production freeze, destroying its strategic umbrella. What would others do? Iran would instantly claim the right to balance. Saudi Arabia would openly start a program. Turkey would think hard about joining the race. The UN would have to design a special Middle East disarmament model. The US would lose its tight grip on the file. In other words, everyone prefers Israel to just keep pretending. A voice from the inside? Ehud Barak, former prime minister. Treaties are for those who don't have enemies at their borders. We don't have that luxury. We only have ourselves and our rules. Have any states tried to change this? Yes, Iran, Egypt, Turkey, Malaysia, South Africa have all pushed UN resolutions for a nuclear weapon-free zone in the Middle East. It sounds noble. In practice, it's a way to force Israel to disarm. The outcome? Israel always says no. The US vetoes. Europe stays quiet. The UN passes symbolic resolutions no one implements. Comparison? Poland, as an NPT member, is locked into the global system. No bomb, no plans. Protection via NATO. Israel trusts no one, not NATO, not the UN, not alliances. It trusts only its own capability. And that is why it will never sign the NPT. Israel knows the world will tolerate a lot, as long as it's quiet. So its bomb doesn't need a signature, a test, or an anthem. It works better than any signed declaration. It works by sheer possibility. It works because the world prefers fiction to facing the truth. What would an Israeli nuclear strike look like? It's a question no one voices publicly, but it lives in every general's mind in the region. What if Israel actually presses that button? Not for blackmail, not for show, for survival. Because Israel's nuclear doctrine, unwritten but real, says clearly, if our existence is at stake, the response will be absolute. This would not be Hiroshima, not Nagasaki. Think Tel Aviv under attack, and an answer that wipes out 5 capitals. So let's imagine how the use of Israeli nuclear weapons might unfold. Base scenario: multiple front assault. Iran, Hezbollah from Lebanon, Hamas from Gaza. Hundreds of rockets a day. Key military infrastructure destroyed. A strike on Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. 20,000 dead within 48 hours. No immediate U.S. intervention. Enemy forces closing in on Israel's borders. That's when the Prime Minister convenes the final cabinet, a special crisis group to decide on nuclear use. And the question hangs in the room. Has the time come to fire Dimona? How would the decision sequence look? Prime Minister, Defense Minister, Chief of Staff, Mossad Chief, Amman, Military Intelligence Chief. Meanwhile, data streams in from Unit 8200, OFEC satellites, real-time intel from foreign stations. There is a secret vote, majority needed. The Prime Minister holds veto power and, in emergency conditions, the right to decide alone. If the decision is made, Operation Orhei Rev, Evening Light, unfolds. Choice of delivery? Israel doesn't have one bomb. It has 3 main options. 1. The Air Force. F-59 Ram takes off from the Negev, flight over Jordanian, Saudi airspace, or via the sea. Target: a strategic military hub near Tehran or Isfahan. Weapon: a gravity bomb dropped over the target area. 2. Jericho III missile. Launch from the desert. Suborbital trajectory. Precision strike with a 150-300 kiloton warhead. Time to target: about 7 minutes. 3. Submarine-launched cruise missile from a Dolphin. Fired from the Red Sea or Mediterranean. Targets: military facilities, missile bases, industrial zones. The choice depends on weather, presence of hostile satellites and radars, enemy response, and the political goal: a warning shot or annihilation. The effects: if the target is Tehran, a city of 12 million, and one 300-kiloton bomb is used, immediate impact, around 500,000 dead in the first hour, up to 1.5 million wounded within the first 2 days. A blast wave leveling roughly 10 square kilometers at the epicenter. A radioactive cloud drifting towards the borders with Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan. If the targets are mainly bases and facilities, destruction of military and technological infrastructure. A strike on Isfahan's nuclear facilities could wipe out the heart of Iran's atomic program. A selective attack, but with a message. Next time, it's the city. Global reaction? The UN Security Council meets at once. Russia and China accuse the US of silent complicity. The US condemns the strike, but avoids hard sanctions. Iran calls for holy war. Saudi Arabia announces its own nuclear program. Turkish streets fill with protests while governments hesitate. Israel refuses to comment. The result? A new era, the nuclear age of the Middle East, and a permanent shift in how the world sees Israel. No longer just as a victim, no longer simply as a democracy, but as the first to actually fire. A voice from inside? Amos Yadlin, former head of Amman. If Israel ever reaches for the atom, it won't be for victory. It will be when every other option is dead. And from that point, there is no way back. Comparison? Poland relies on collective nuclear deterrence. Israel relies on the possibility of a solitary, total retaliation. For Poland, the bomb is a guarantee from the US. For Israel, it is the last trench, the line beyond which everything ends. Israel does not want to use this bomb, but it has prepared for that scenario with perfection, because this bomb is not meant to win a war. It's meant to prevent any war from becoming the last one. But if the system fails, If the world once again decides to look away, if the enemy crosses the red line, the question will no longer be who has the bomb, only who is left after it. Who in Israel can give the nuclear order? In the US, the president decides. In Russia, a small circle of key generals. In China, the party's central leadership. In North Korea, one man. And in Israel, in a state that officially doesn't have the bomb? The answer: the decision belongs to someone whose signature appears in no treaty, but could rewrite world history. Israel has never published a nuclear doctrine. There is no written deterrent strategy, no revealed chain of command. But leaks and analyses indicate that the decision to use nuclear weapons lies solely with the Prime Minister. It must be preceded by a conclusion from the National Security Cabinet, some 15-20 people, PM, Defense Minister, Mossad Chief, Amman Chief, IDF Chief of Staff, and others. The PM can act alone, in extraordinary mode, if there is an existential threat to the state. There are no public instructions, no nuclear manual. But there are operational schemes, codes and procedures known to maybe a dozen people in the country. Does Israel have a nuclear briefcase? Not like the United States. No physical case with codes carried behind the PM. But there is a system known as Ma'arashet Hachlatot Ramas, the Strategic Decisions System. It includes encrypted communications, satellite and land-based, a central command terminal in the bunker under the Kiryat complex in Tel Aviv, 2 alternate command posts in the Negev and Galilee, an internal operational code called Segul, a single-use key known only to the Prime Minister and a military operator at Tel Nof. In short, the PM can issue an order from anywhere, but execution only happens from authorized command centers. Bunkers and command posts? Israel has several sites from which a strategic order can be given. The Kiryat, the underground complex under central Tel Aviv, its version of the Pentagon. HaKiryat HaTachtit, the lower command, a backup bunker. Ma'alot, a mountainous evacuation facility for senior command. A node in Dimona, tied into the nuclear oversight unit. Palmakim Missile Base, controlling Jericho launches. From these locations, they can issue the order, activate launch sequences, transmit codes to the operational units, air, missile, naval. The activation sequence? It's built on a 3-layer model. 1. Political authorization. The PM gives the command, confirmed by the Defense Minister and, optionally, the IDF Chief of Staff. 2. Transmission. Encrypted signals sent to the launch system via the so-called Yael protocol. 3. Execution, pilot, missile crew, submarine receive confirmation, and the launch procedure. The entire process takes, according to RAND estimates, between 7 and 12 minutes. The system is automated but protected by a double authorization and confirmation signal. A voice from inside, Ephraim Snee, General and former Deputy Defense Minister. This isn't a movie. The Prime Minister doesn't press a red button. But if he says do it, the system executes. And after that, there's no undo. What if the Prime Minister is taken out? Israel has a continuity of command plan. If the PM is killed or incapacitated, the Defense Minister takes over. If he's gone, the head of the National Security Council. If they're all dead, an emergency national security mode kicks in. The IDF chief can trigger a fail-safe procedure under triple verification. It's the darkest scenario, but it exists on paper. Comparison? Poland has no nuclear system, but theoretically, any use of nuclear weapons from NATO soil would require Polish presidential agreement in coordination with the US. It's a collective consultative system. Israel is a lone player. It doesn't consult, it doesn't ask, it doesn't wait. Israel is a country that built a weapon it doesn't officially have, a system it doesn't talk about. Procedures it intends to use only once, because there will be no need for a second time. It's a system built not to be used, but to ensure no one can ever again force Israel into victimhood. There is no single button, no single plan. There is an entire web that functions up to this very second, and will go silent only when it's already too late. In the end, this is not about the weapon. It's about having a grip on chaos. And so far, Israel has kept that grip. On the map of the Middle East, you see borders and cities, pipelines, bases, trade routes, but above all that hangs a shadow, invisible, colorless, yet more powerful than all the armies combined. The shadow of Israel's nuclear bomb. The bomb that officially doesn't exist, but has shaped the outcome of every war in the region for decades. There is no single briefcase, no single person pressing a magic button, but if an enemy crosses the red line, Israel will not call. Israel will not ask, Israel will respond, and there may be no world left to judge whether it had the right. This bomb, which no one has ever seen, is one of the most powerful actors in international politics today. Because in a world that runs on PR, Israel has built something else: silence that everyone fears. If this episode gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe, leave a like, and share it on. This isn't just a video about a bomb. It's a story about why Israel stays silent, and why that silence works better than thousands of missiles. And if you want more content like this, on the conflict with Iran, on war doctrines, on secret weapons programs, click subscribe and step deeper into a world people only talk about in whispers.